Kathleen Kennedy, if everyone remembers, was not universally despised or in fact, she was universally held as a perfect successor for Lucasfilm in 2012 when this started. So this started in 2012. Lucasfilm was in a quiet period, and oddly, Lucasfilm was on the rise for one show, the Clone Wars animated series, and that started quietly on the Cartoon Network, and it slowly built up a big following. I ended up becoming one of those followers, and the show was actually gaining momentum. It was doing very, very good and some incredible storytelling shows for Star Wars. And then in 2012, the big announcement: Lucas is going to sell Lucasfilm to Disney. And I hope we all remember this was received as good news. Disney's had a great reputation in 2012. They had a close relationship with Lucasfilm. I still remember going to see Star Tours at Universal Studios or at Disney World in the 90s. No, was that at Universal? Star Tours? I can't remember, but I remember seeing it in the 90s and just loving it. So there was a relationship there between Disney and Lucasfilm, and I remember even in the movie Toy Story 2, they used a bunch of sound effects from Star Wars. I was like, oh, that's Vader's breath. Oh, that's the sound of the ATST. So, and Kennedy seemed to be.
It was Disney. Star 2 and Titterpigs got it here too. Yes. And
okay, thank you, Titterpig. I love
Disney
it, by the way.
simulator ride, at Disneyland Resort in California. Gotcha.
And it was great. You were on a bus, a star bus, and you ended up in this intergalactic dogfight around the Death Star. It was great. I was never, but I've seen advertisements of it. I remember seeing advertisements as a kid going like, that looks cool. It was awesome. It blew me away. So in 2012, it felt right that it was going to be Disney.
Yes, it felt right. Because did I freeze or did Doug freeze? I'm not sure. Oh, there you go. Okay. So, but it also I never and still continue to not be fans of the prequels. So, I remember when we went through all of the excitement that, finally there are new Star Wars movies coming out. I never, there was the initial enthusiasm surrounding the Phantom Menace. But I didn't think that was all that great, but it was new Star Wars. Of course, to a lot of new generations, that is Star Wars, and so
right.
They came in with that. But, I remember, I even remember after Revenge of the Sith. Yeah. That was the third
2005.
Yeah. I mean, my family, we were not real huge fans. We were kind of making fun of it at the time. And I remember my uncle, we were out there having a conversation in his driveway. And he said, regarding Revenge of the Sith, well, at least it's over. I mean, little did he know. Little did we all know at that time.
Oh, my God.
That was our interpretation of that, okay, oh, my God. And so when I heard that, okay, Disney was going to be making Star Wars, I thought, okay, this is an opportunity to do some good Star Wars, because even to this day, I'm not really fans of the prequels. I did rewatch them a few years ago. Is this really as bad as I remember? And the answer was yes. I mean, I just was. A lot of people have said, a lot of in the geek verse have said, well, we weren't fans then, but looking back, man, how amazing the prequel. And I'm still not one of those people.
Well, I'll say this: the prequels had some things that did age well. It doesn't erase what you're talking about, which is the quality of some of the films, especially like dialogue. Some of the storytelling got a little muddied up. However, when you stop and take a look at cultural impact, if I say Darth Maul's face,
yeah.
The battle droids, Qui-Gon Jinn, played by Leslie Nielsen. Why am I drawing? Who plays Qui-Gon Jinn?
Qui-Gon Jinn is
Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson.
I don't know why I completely blanched on that.
Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson.
Not Leslie Nielsen.
I don't know.
Funny,
I don't know. I could tell there was something scrambled up there. But Liam Neeson, he's an iconic Jedi warrior. Ewan McGregor in that.
Yeah.
I would even argue Jake Lloyd as a young Anakin aged well. The pod races. the Naboo starfighter. These are all iconic images. And to be perfectly honest, one of the greatest things that the Phantom Menace left us with was renewed optimism in 1999, because in the late 90s, the Star Wars special editions came out to mixed reviews. But I would argue, whether you like the special editions or not, interest in Star Wars was completely revitalized and led to the announcement of the prequels. And there was a hysteria in 1999 over the Phantom Menace coming out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely, there was.
So
Absolutely.
I think the millennials who are young, who are kids, they remember the hype, they remember the excitement, and they remember being a part of it all. And I think that has aged well. And so when you see the images of Darth Maul and the double lightsaber, and I still see memes, of the Joe Rogan coverage where they show Darth Maul and they're like this, and then the one blade comes out and they're like this, and then the second blade comes out and they're like, ah! Just like geeking out over it. Because people remember that moment in the trailer when we first saw the double lightsaber. So, there was certainly a cultural impact there. And I think once we've seen what others have done with Star Wars, the prequels suddenly don't quite look as bad. Does that absolve them completely? No. I don't think so. There are definitely some very cringeworthy moments watching them. I cannot stand the dialogue, and some of the acting is wooden. But there are some. There is a lot to like in the prequels as well. It's a mixed bag at best.
Yeah, you were talking about that field, but I remember going to see also when the special editions were released in theaters. I mean, that was a huge deal. I mean, that was be there at midnight, or be square, be there or be square kind of things. I mean, that's totally everything's going on,
Right. Well, and those are the films that made it famous. I mean, the special editions are the revitalization of Star Wars. The prequels revitalized Star Wars, and in a very mixed bag kind of way. The soundtracks are really good. John Williams soundtracks in the prequel trilogies. But it did give Star Wars to the entire millennial generation. Most millennials speak fondly of it. And I feel like, I remember, but I do remember the problems with it. There was so much I was upset about at the time. And there was a fan backlash over the prequels. We don't want to gloss that over. There was a lot of fan backlash. This is before social media, though. So it was, it didn't have a direct expression the way we have today.
Right. But no, I remember people blogging about it too. I remember, like, I was at my family's lake house. I was living up there for a time. There was basically no internet up there, but I could get my phone if I parked in the right spot of the rec area or something like that. I could get 1 bar of internet on my phone, signal on my phone to be. And I do remember at that time reading some blogs that were highly critical of the prequel trilogy and comedic. There was some guy who would had this baby. Somebody in the comments may remember this baby. He was rating different things that happened according to this baby's expression. So he'd write something, and then the image of this baby was some kind of weird expression on his face, what's going on. And I remember I remember dying, being in the car, crying because listening to what or reading what this guy was saying. Yeah, I know that makes me want to. It does sound like heaven. I'm gonna that's what I need again, maybe.
Yeah. But my point is that Star Wars did get revitalized, even with imperfect films. It got revitalized, and I actually loved Revenge of the Sith. Now, it wasn't perfect. There were several things I was upset about, but overall, I loved it. I saw it, I think, 8 times at the theaters when it was out.
Oh my God! Oh, okay.
Yeah, I went. I think I went. There were certain things I just loved about it. I loved Order 66, which at the time was shocking. It was shocking watching the Galactic Republic turn into the Empire, which the Clone Wars animated series really hammered home in ways that kind of left me awestruck. In the Clone Wars, you saw Obi-Wan Kenobi on the bridge of what looked like a Star Destroyer with his hands behind his back, with the triangular windows, commanding the galactic Venator, to approach a planet for, bombardment. I'm like, holy shit. I was like, the Jedi are all acting the way Darth Vader is in Empire, but there's so many of them. And so Vader's the only one that's still on mission by the time we get to Empire Strikes Back. He's still doing what the Jedi. So there was a fascinating story. It wasn't just the fall of Anakin Skywalker; it was the collapse of all the democratic institutions of the Galactic Republic. So society collapsed at the same time that its greatest hero collapsed, and as a result, you ended up with the Empire, a new world order with Palpatine at the head, and Darth Vader as number 2, and that's the original trilogy there. So anyway, by the time we get into the late 2000s, it was quiet except for the Star Wars animated series, which was gaining momentum. That's where Dave Filoni comes into the picture, by the way. He was an unknown until the Star Wars Clone Wars animated series. That's where Dave Filoni entered this, and he worked directly with George Lucas. Worked directly with him. Lucas was involved in the Clone Wars, and they worked together very well. But again, now that we're in 2012, you got Kathleen Kennedy, and there's that picture if you want. But Kathleen Kennedy has been around forever, and I won't spend too much time on this, but we have to remember, that's a picture in 1979 while they're filming Raiders of the Lost Ark, which came out in 1980, but the filming was 79. So, and I think that's Frank Marshall over there and George Lucas in the middle. She's been around forever. Just a quick recap of just a few of the movies she's been involved in. Jaws. She was a producer in Jaws, Poltergeist, E.T., Twilight Zone the movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Gremlins, The Goonies, Back to the Future, The Color Purple, An American Tail. The list goes on and on. She was involved in a couple other things. There's another list where she was just a producer instead of an executive producer. But Kathleen Kennedy has genuinely been involved and produced some of the greatest films of my childhood and my generation. And so she was well known for, well respected, in fact, Hollywood royalty at the time. Her rap sheet was unprecedented, up at the top, one of the best ever. And so the decision was made to sell Lucasfilm to Walt Disney in 2012.
Well, and why did this even happen? Okay, new photo. Here we go.
Right. So this was well received at the time. And now this has become almost infamous imagery because there was a lot of talk between her and George Lucas, between Bob Iger and Lucas. And in this interview right here that we're looking at, she absolutely states that we will continue your legacy as you saw it. And for those who may or may not know, George Lucas did give her the scripts and the treatments for the sequel trilogy. And she says in this interview, we will make these movies, your movies, and it is our honor to pretty much carry on your legacy. And was dry. His scripts were thrown in the trash. And Kennedy's like, no, we're going to do something completely new. So, so she didn't honor that agreement. So that's going to be in place for all time. Unmistakable, at best, change of mind toward the creator of Star Wars and her decision to kind of go with her own vision on this, which actually started okay. It started okay. Do you remember this? This was viewed as positively in 2012.
Yeah, it was positive, and like I say, it had to do also, I think, part of the backlash from the prequels. I mean, that was there too.
Right.
People were very critical of them and what Lucas had done with them, and I think that was part of it, at least as I remember. That okay, which Cameron's talked about. Well, look, the fandom ran George Lucas away from Star Wars. At least in some way. Now, I was looking like over here. Why did George Lucas sell Star Wars? And there's a lot of things that are listed over here about, I just, wanted to retire,
fan backlash was one of the
kind of, but yeah, but I think there was that but there was something about like, well, if this wasn't received all that well, then let somebody else have it. And like I said, that we did think that way, that, okay, well, now Disney is going to make some really high quality Star Wars. Little did we know.
Right. Well, it seemed to be in the right hands, and it actually seemed like the right time for George Lucas maybe to step away. He was getting up there in age. His prequel trilogy was mixed in terms of how it was received, if not even somewhat rejected by the fan base. There was a lot of criticism for it, and a lot of it was valid criticism. So I think there was it seemed like the right time. And and Disney seemed like the right successor. And Kathleen seemed like the right next head of the studio. Like everything seemed right about that in 2012. Our culture was about to change right around this time. And so Disney, it's being handed off right at the forefront of what would be a major cultural shift too, in Hollywood and in popular culture and in the zeitgeist.
That was 2015. I was just leading that up. So, The Force Awakens, is that basically where you are? The Force Awakens.
Well, hold on. I was gonna add something here. Yeah. So later that year, she sold it to Disney, and then later that year, they announced they're going to do a new trilogy, and this was very exciting news. This was the famous photo that was circulating. J.J. Abrams, whose stock was high in 2012, he was the guy that was he rebooted Star Trek. Now, some people loved it, some people hated it, some people thought it aged well, some people thought
I'm on the hate it side.
Yeah, I don't like it. I will admit it's a little bit of a guilty pleasure movie, and I can't even explain it. I'm embarrassed to even admit it, but there's certain things about it that I found that I like. But he was considered. He made it very profitable, which was a bottom line issue. He rebooted Star Trek. He was involved in Cloverfield. I don't know if you guys remember that. I love Cloverfield. Love that movie. He was still hot off his success from Lost around this time. So his star was rising. He seemed like a big shot, the next big thing in Hollywood. So not only did Star Wars go to Disney, not only did Kathleen Kennedy get the head, they're taking the biggest new director in Hollywood, J.J. Abrams. He's going to lead this. And back then, I don't remember there being a lot of backlash toward J.J. Abrams. I remember him being mostly celebrated by the public. And keep in mind, these are the early days, semi-early days of social media.
Okay. So Star Trek Into Darkness was 2009. So that had been a while. Like, so I remember
I did not like Into Darkness at all.
That was the first one, right? Yeah. First Star Trek movie was Star Trek Into Darkness. And I do remember thinking, but yeah, at the time, there's like, okay, J.J. Abrams, okay. There are only a few people on the planet who get almost no one who get the extreme honor of doing something in Star Wars and Star Trek. You get Star Trek and Star Wars. Like this is the dream. And
so just a quick correction. Okay. Just a quick correction. Star Trek, the reboot, came out in 2009. Star Trek Into Darkness wasn't until 2013.
Oh. Okay, you're right. I had the picture of Into Darkness. I was like, that wasn't the name of the original. Right. Right. The picture was sitting right by that. So you're right. So Star Trek 2009. Right. So he was doing other Star Trek J.J. Abrams films.
Yeah. So
he did Star Trek 2009 Into Darkness. He also produced Star Trek Beyond 2016. But Star Trek and then Star Trek Into Darkness was 2013. But still, that he got to do that. Yeah. And I was like, but he didn't do it. I remember thinking he didn't do it well. And now he's going to get to go over and do Star Wars.
Yeah. But I remember being excited about this. And I remember in the film's lead up, they were leaking out photos of him standing next to kind of a modified X-Wing. And then this photo with R2-D2 and I was like, oh my God, it's happening. We're going to get another Star Wars trilogy. This is going to be incredible. All the best people are working on it. And I was excited about Daisy Ridley. She, great, good-looking young actress. You had Adam Driver in there, John Boyega, like Oscar Isaac. His star was on the rise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
So, and I would say his star has continued to rise for the most part through the Dune series and everything. So, there was just a lot of Carrie Fisher's coming back. Mark Hamill's coming back. Harrison Ford is coming back. Anthony Daniels is coming back. Like the whole crew. So the buzz was palpable in 2012 when they made this announcement and they started showing these pictures.